Mike, we're halfway through these 6-day hearings to give business leaders here in the United States an opportunity to air their views about the potential impact of these latest tariffs. We've heard from lawnmower manufacturers and even the people who make ATMs. That's right, even the business of potentially withdrawing your cash might become more expensive should these tariffs be imposed, this second round of tariffs. And yet we're at a critical moment for these trade talks because there's a chance, just a slim chance, that these two sides might be able to resolve their differences. From beer kegs to boats, business leaders descending on Washington, D.C. for a third day to state their case for and against ramping up tariffs on China. They're telling the US government why they think imposing tariffs on another $200 billion of Chinese imports will be good or bad for business in both countries.
It's nuts. I mean, I don't understand how they're going to be able to process and digest so many integral products and categories.
I feel strongly about the Chinese tire industry and the role that it plays in the U.S. market. They represent 40% of the tires sold in the U.S. That is a huge number, and there's no other market in the world that can satisfy that demand.
These tariffs would take effect in late September and hit many consumer products that until now have been largely spared. And even before that, there are more tariffs looming. On Thursday, the Trump administration is expected to impose duties on an extra $16 billion of Chinese imports. That's on top of $34 billion already in place. All of this aimed at pressuring China into changing what the US calls unfair trade practices. China denies this and says it will retaliate in kind against any new tariffs. And yet, even as this trade war is poised to escalate, the two sides are at least resuming talks they abandoned months ago. Chinese Vice Minister of Commerce Wang Shouwen is in Washington, D.C. for low-level talks with US officials. Mike, it's hard to imagine a time when expectations have been lower. We're in the midst, for resuming these trade talks, we're in the midst of a trade war between the world's two biggest economies. And these are really talks about having talks. Can these two sides even find some room to pick up on where they left off several months ago? President Donald Trump earlier this week said he had low expectations for these talks. He said, "I'm like China, I have a long horizon." He's certainly accurate in that respect. What he's saying essentially is that he can carry on taxing China, whereas China has much more limited room for maneuver simply because it buys so much less from the US than it sends the other way. China, for its part, says it hopes for a good result from these talks, but there's just no detail yet on where these two sides stand and exactly what they can talk about. We're hopefully going to expect a statement from these two sides when they resume talks on Thursday, when they wrap up these talks on Thursday, I should say, and we should have a better idea then of exactly where they stand. Mike.
Owen, thanks so much.